Om Shanti. Welcome to Masters of Change. The greatest discovery of all time is that a person can change his future by merely changing his attitude, said Oprah Winfrey. Today we have with us a very special guest, Sister Kala from New York. Sister Kala has been a practicing pediatrician and a spiritual teacher. She did not go from India well prepared to settle at the center, but to actually practice as a doctor, and chanced upon the spiritual journey while she was there. Let's hear from her about her experience and her journey so far. Sister, we welcome you on the show. Thank you for being with us.
Om Shanti, and thank you so much for inviting me on the show, and it is really my pleasure and honor to share with the viewers my journey, which I'm sure from your experience, everyone's journey is very unique. So in my case, my spiritual journey, quote unquote spiritual, by the way, this word spiritual I stayed away from for the longest time, even after coming into the spiritual path, because I did not really understand it. Okay. But now going back, I see how it's such an integral part of anyone's journey in life, whether you know it or not, whether you accept it or not. So in my case, I graduated as a physician in India, and I went abroad. I pursued the practice of pediatrics, furthering my practice of pediatrics, training in pediatrics. And I actually settled down to a practice of pediatrics in New York, outside of India, of course. And so you would think that all things are settled and going very well, and, I should have been very happy, right? Which I was. Externally speaking, if anybody spoke to me, they would say, oh, you're in a very good position. But this word spiritual again comes to mind. What was happening inside while that facade of happiness was there outside. I would come home every night and ask myself this question: is this all there is I can do for people who are suffering, for example? I would see kids coming sick, they're getting better after treatment, but then again after a few days coming back with something else and something else and something else. So basically what I saw was that whatever we were doing, was very limited and very short-lasting. And something in me told me that there's a lot more to healing or bringing comfort to people's lives. But I didn't do anything about it. I just kind of kept that to myself. Okay. The other thing that I would often wonder about is my religious practice or my belief in value system, for example. As you know, the culture that you grow up in India has a different kind of value system than when you settle down. I'm not sure so much. It's not so much at that time, but now it's a lot more, of course. But I would always question my choices. In other words, what should I be wearing, for example? What should I be eating, for example? How should I be behaving? Because we are brought up in a particular way, whether you think of it as religious or cultural or whatever. But it would often enter my mind, and there would be moments of conflict when somebody would offer something and I would kind of hesitate, and I didn't know why I was hesitating. I didn't have a real reason for that. So there was this conflict of values systems. And so all this was happening, subconsciously. I was not proactively engaged in seeking help or seeking answers or attending workshops or spiritual groups or anything like that. But it just so happened one day that I was casually introduced to the Brahma Kumaris, and even at that time I didn't make too much of it. I just kind of stayed away and said, I'll do that. Yeah. And finally, I said, okay, I'll please this person who is, telling me to go to the center. And I went to the Brahma Kumaris Center in New York, the oldest one in New York actually. And my first day actually revealed a whole lot of things to me. And it had to do with a picture that I saw, even though not consciously sitting to meditate or anything like that, but I just entered and I was told to sit, and the only thing that was very visibly there for me attractive was this picture of this point of light in the front of the room, and there was nobody else in the room, so I started looking at the picture. And as I started looking at the picture came alive. It was like somebody was kind of putting up a show as a point of light. So I got a very, very clear feeling of a lot of rest, comfort coming through in the heart. And so, of course, I didn't put my finger on it at that time, but it just made me feel very good. And the message that I really got was that you have come home. You have come home in the sense that I was feeling very, very comfortable, even though nobody had yet spoken anything to me yet. And so just in that few moments of silence, I kind of know that my life had taken a different turn. And then, of course, the whole course followed, the Raj Yoga course followed. And a lot of the concepts I could identify with, some of the concepts I did not identify with. I actually kind of reacted in the sense that I was not happy with it, and so it took me a while to settle down to all the different concepts, but it was a beautiful journey, I would say, because it really was about me and me alone. It showed me that I was not alone, that somebody really cared for me very deeply. Just at the point where I was really looking for that kind of a turn and a purposeful life, this had come up. So obviously it was not even my own active looking or seeking. So I felt a lot of help coming from the other side. So for example, when you talk about meditation, you think of it as something that you do, right? How do you meditate? And for me, it was not so much about me doing anything in meditation, but it was really about receiving or listening to some other force that's out there. So, and I found this huge difference between how I used to approach prayer, before my religious practice before. It was mostly asking, seeking, praying, singing, reading, all of those things. And now it was more about listening, being, and feeling, my own self and also my connection with God. So in that sense, I think my life had changed. It had become spiritual. Of course, all the other external layers came later on. But I think this is what every human being is actually looking for, to find themselves in their original form.
Certainly.
And that connection with God. But at that time, I had no picture for myself for the future. I had no idea that I would be sitting in upfront there one day, or wearing white sari, or dedicating my life or anything. But I could only feel the moment, right? I don't know if you can get me, that as you go through these things in life, the moment is the most important thing. And so that moment actually seemed very important for me, because I was getting this offering from, of course you may say the sisters, but it was really from God. The offering was for me to spend some dedicated quality time with myself. So, for example, I would get up in the morning, early hours of the morning, which I had never done before, and I would just feel so good having this precious quality time just with myself. It seemed like a luxury, because usually you have to get up in the morning, rush off to work, think of the next thing and the next thing and the next thing, and of course, you have to take care of your own personal things too. And you never ever get this feeling of caring for yourself, isn't it? You know, self-care. We call it self-care these days.
Yeah.
I didn't know what to call it at that time, but I just felt this wave of care that was pouring in, and who was doing it was myself, actually, just because I was getting up a few minutes earlier and sitting with myself and having these beautiful thoughts that were suggested. And so for me, that was precious. The same thing happened, like at the end of the day, you know, you're tired from work, you just want to go home, rest, you know, have your dinner, and, you know, that's it for the day. But no, I was getting so inspired and so energized by hearing, by thinking, and by being in that atmosphere of whatever the knowledge is telling me, that I would rush to the center after work.
Okay.
And I would wait for what next. In other words, I would either meditate myself, or if somebody came, they would tell me, go and speak to this person. And of course, in those tender years, as you said, I didn't know what to say to who. But it was just very intoxicating and natural for me to share what I had just felt, what I had just learned. And for me, that kind of created a whole different energy, internal energy. And so whereas people would ask me, but don't you get tired at the end of the day? Don't you want to go? And I would say, no, this is giving me so much energy. This is what's helping me to rest in peace and go to work the next day with double energy, triple energy. And so it was really like feeding on itself, you know. So for me, that seemed very important at that point in life. Maybe several years ago, it would not have mattered so much.
Right.
But at that point in time in my life, this was very important, because I had really explored, and, you know, I was already in practice. I was having a subtle, but I was looking more the internal experience. So this is how I think I progressed. And then in terms of seeing myself, you know, not being pulled by the worldly attainments or the experiences. Again, as I said, I didn't see myself at that time that I would be giving up practice and doing just this. I just took it one day at a time, you know, and for me that one day, that one moment was important, precious, and it led me to the next moment and the next moment. And little by little, it became clear to me what my life was about, or what my calling was about, I should say. I remember speaking to one of our instruments early on as I came, little bit addressing this question of, you know, whether I should continue practice, you know, ongoing or not, and whether I should. It wasn't even whether I should, but I actually said I want to do this full time at one point. But the advice given back was, no, not at all, because I have spent years and years, my parents have spent, you know, resources on me, and I have gained so many contacts and experiences myself in life, and so I cannot just say that's that and, you know, just totally change the direction in this way. But I really will be most useful if I take energy from here and if I use that energy on that other side where I am really of service to the humanity.
Right.
So, and that made a lot of sense. And so little by little, I really oriented myself that my life is really about integrating the two sides together. And so this is what I have to do. And it was beautiful after that. Once I shifted my mindset, it became beautiful. And then the time came when I wasn't thinking of, you know, totally dedicating life to this spiritual service. I had almost forgotten about it, but then I was asked by the seniors to say, you know, how long are you going to be doing that? So I think there comes a time in everyone's life where you kind of know, you know, where you are of maximum service or how you are of maximum service to humanity. You know, at one point you can be totally physically engaged and that's what you can do. But as you evolve spiritually, you know, you become more and more apt at it.
Absolutely.
And then you can think of, you know, dividing your time and energy in the two different directions as you see fit.
Indeed.
Right.
So, sister, I see that you integrated both these sides. And I'm sure there must have been colleagues who would have known you prior, and then they were still working with you when you started meditating. So, did you see any change in the way they responded to you or the way they looked at you? Was there a difference?
Absolutely. Not overnight.
Yeah.
But they would see me coming. Sometimes I would dress in white, not always, but I would dress in white. But then in those days, I would also share more freely, generously about what I had just learned. In the morning classes, for example, I would share a point or two, and then they would take a lot of benefit from that. They would think about it and they would question about it. And I had the opportunity to also invite them once in a while to some programs, some meditation sessions. In those days in New York, I would say it was not so much of an end thing, meditation. So in the beginning, I would be a little hesitant to tell them. But little by little, I think, I opened up more and started talking about the practical aspects and the benefits of meditation, and they would take it, And this is not about everyone, of course. You would also choose your people, right? Because everyone's different and they will respond differently. But I would be able to pick up mostly what, who is ready for what.
Yeah.
And the other interesting thing I found was that, my interaction with patients changed tremendously as I started to meditate. And with some of the patients, I could talk more freely about their attitudes and their mindsets and their way of mental habits and how that impacts the children's health, how they could be more calm in their approach, and how if they are anxious, the children get anxious too, and they would respond to that. So they would be more responsive to that. So I think in that way also I found very, very helpful. What I was learning was very useful on this side too. And the interesting thing I want to share is, little children, as you know, they're very sensitive to vibrations, right? So I found this difference from before my practice of meditation and after my practice of meditation, how they calm down as well. Whereas, they would be screaming and putting up a fight even to enter the room, Of course, because they're going to be examined and they're going to get an injection and all that. But I found that they too calmed down, and I really felt that it was because of my ongoing practice of what we call soul-to-soul vision, exchange of vision, looking at the child not as a patient, but looking at the child as a soul. As I am a soul, another soul, we are interacting. And so this whole thing of soul consciousness that we talk about in Raj Yoga, that became a very practical, beautiful thing for me, a gift for me in my professional life as well. Because now it was not so much of a role consciousness, but it was soul consciousnness. Right?
How about your parents? They must have sent their daughter for medical practice. How was their response?
Their response was a little bit critical in the beginning, a little bit suspicious in the beginning, because in those days, Brahma Kumaris were not well known, so nobody had heard about it. And so here I am sitting in New York and telling them about Brahma Kumaris, they're in India. And my first visit to Madhuban, I'm planning my first visit to Madhuban, and they're getting a little anxious and worried where I'm coming to. And so I said, if you really want to find out, then you can join too, The only thing is that you'll need to go connect to the center and, you can get prepared, and then you can come and meet me over there too. And they were sporty enough. They agreed to that, and they did the same thing, and they explored the whole journey of Raj Yoga. They found it very beautiful, and they joined me in Madhuban, actually. My first visit, just for a few days, of course. But yes, in the sense that they were getting a little bit more anxious. On the one hand, it made them anxious, but on the other hand, they also settled down after visiting Madhuban, because they felt that I found a very good path, and this was something very good for me, let alone everything else, but just for me personally to dedicate or to concentrate in one particular direction was good, and not being distracted by all the negativities. And I think they felt safe, that this was a very safe approach or a safe path. Now, of course, they're changed tremendously and part of the BK family.
Okay, wonderful. So, sister, you shared with us that there was a time when you were advised to continue your practice along with meditation, and you did that very beautifully. Now, after having integrated both of these things and maturing on this path, there came a point where you were asked to select and probably devote yourself to this full time. How was that change?
One thing I must admit was that I did continue my practice professionally, but I knew that I wasn't giving it my full self, 100% self, because as you know, medicine today is very advanced and you have to keep up with it, you have to dedicate a lot of time to study and to develop yourself and so on. So in that sense, I felt I wasn't doing justice to what I was doing. Yes, I was able to keep up bare, minimum, but I really wanted, my heart was in the other side. Right? I really wanted to be of service and take more benefit from what was being offered spiritually. So I would attend retreats, and I would, help, prepare for programs and create even programs for healthcare people, but not necessarily the same level of desire, dedication, and passion. So I felt that that's where I feel there is a calling for everyone. That you can kind of feel it. You can continue on a superficial level for some time, but at the depth of the heart and the soul, there's really a calling for every soul. And so I felt that, and because I was not totally 100% satisfied with that, when the offer came, it was very easy for me to say yes to that. And so therefore, and I'm remembering that sometimes I would even feel guilty because I was not keeping up with some of the journals and the educational part of it. And so I felt good, actually. I felt a big sense of relief, knowing that the reason I had been asked is because I was ready for it. Somebody thought that I could be of spiritual service more. So it was a very beautiful turning point for me.
So then you moved into the center.
And I moved into the center long before that. I was doing both from the center.
From the center.
Right after 1 year of coming into knowledge, I moved into the center. So I was doing both from the center. I would, as a matter of fact, I remember now, Saturday, Sunday, you're in the center, doing all the spiritual service and all that. And Monday morning, sometimes it would feel like I'm going on vacation. Because it was physically quite demanding in those days, because there was very few hands at that time. But all joyful, all very enjoyable, no complaints. But it would be a sense of a deep breath, take a deep breath on Monday morning, getting out of the center for Lokik work. Like how usually people would say, oh, Monday morning, feel terrible. For me, it was like a nice change, shifting from one gear to the other gear.
Right.
Was a very nice feeling.
Now at the Peace Village, what all do you do? What are the initiatives that you've taken? How are things there?
In Peace Village, again, my settling down in Peace Village is a story in itself, in the sense that this was a place that I really resisted, for Brahma Kumaris to get or acquire in those days. Because again, I was just thinking on a physical level. I said, it's a huge place, huge venture.
Yeah.
So what are we going to do with all of that when we don't have enough people to serve even in the smaller centers, right? But of course, again, Baba gave me very beautiful experiences of how the place is really for world service, not for serving you and me, So, after the first year, Dadi Janki actually was the one who gave me the assignment of staying in Peace Village.
Okay.
So not because I was ready or trained or prepared or anything like that, but totally threw me into the ocean because it was a huge thing for me. I could have never imagined. But that's been a beautiful experience. And basically, I would say, it was a big experience of living in a community, working with others as a community who I didn't know at all, and helping to develop programs at the same time, keeping the peace within the family, the BK family. So now, of course, it's, looking back, it feels like a game, but it was not such a game after all at that time.
Sure.
And now it's, of course, it's in a nice place of offering services to a very, very wide variety of people from all backgrounds. We hold weekend retreats for different ethnic communities, different professional levels of people, different spiritual levels of interest, and so on and so forth. And we do offer something for healthcare professionals also, a couple of times a year, Hope in Healthcare, under the auspices of Hope in Healthcare. And that's been very beautiful, because there's a very, very strong need for the caregivers to be cared for.
Right.
Nobody asks them, how are you, right?
Right.
So they come for a weekend of silence and reflection and soul-conscious education, and go back very refreshed, energized. And even during the COVID, we've been able to have weekly meditations called Feel Well, Heal Well meditation. So a lot of people think that you can only feel well after you're healed.
Yeah.
But we believe that you feel well and it would automatically help you to heal. The feel well factor, as they call it.
Right.
If you have enough of that, then it kind of promotes the healing as well.
Indeed.
So I enjoy that, a lot. I feel that connection back to the healthcare community in that.
Yeah.
And besides that, of course, real seekers, we hold silence retreats, 2-3 days silence retreats, and people get beautiful experiences because Peace Village is also set in a very natural setting. And so it provides that, very natural environment for experiencing the inner nature of peace. So that's been very, very beautiful. And then we have retreats for high-level influential people also, with strong spiritual resources. And so very, very, unique way of touching humanity, I feel.
Indeed. Sister, you mentioned silence retreat. Would you want to give us a little peek into the meaning of silence for you, or what do you do in a silence retreat?
Silence has a lot of importance for me, in my spiritual journey. In fact, I remember even in my childhood days, the best moments I had of any kind of connection with God was in silent places. Of course, you go to many temples, but there was a temple in our town which was very silently located. I mean, it was located in a very silent setting, quiet setting. And those were my beautiful experiences. And I would go to school chapel every lunch hour and have this beautiful experience. But I didn't know what was happening at that time. But later on, I realized that the original nature of the soul is silence. And from there, we have moved away into this culture of sound and doing and, so many different scenes and sceneries and voices and sounds. But when you really want to know yourself, all you have to remind yourself is, I am a silent, peaceful soul, and especially as this living, conscious entity, a being of light, you can give yourself the gift of that silence in a very natural way, just by reminding yourself who you are. And a lot of people, embrace this concept very openly, because I think people are tired of, noises and sounds and having to engage in actions all the time. Yes, of course, we take rest and go to sleep, but even in sleep, people are not able to rest these days. There's so much going on mentally. So the real way to silence the mind is to give yourself a little injection of knowledge, wisdom, that I, the soul, am silent and peaceful. And I have lots and lots of beautiful qualities and energy when I'm in that original state of mind. So, and that, of course, then reflects into the way we think and process different ideas and come up with solutions for problems, and the way we treat each other. It kind of has impact on everything that we do in life. And it's a slow learning, though, because we're not used to keeping silent. But from time to time, introducing that 1 or 2 minute traffic control, especially the habit of traffic control with the Brahma Kumaris. It's a beautiful practice that I think trains you in silencing the mind as well. And so I feel that it's something that everyone will embrace by the end of a few years.
Yeah, truly.
Because the souls are truly, truly very tired.
Thank you so much, sister.
Thank you.
Thanks to all our viewers for listening to us. We've indeed explored the meaning of silence, connection with the self, and how embracing new things in life can lead us to newer and greater paths. Thank you for being with us today.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Om Shanti.
Om Shanti.